and welcome to the Check Out This Record podcast. My name is Frank, and with me is my good buddy Mark. This is the podcast where we talk about all sorts of musical goodness. We'll review albums we have never heard of before. We will suggest albums to each other, of course, to review. We have a wide variety of musical discussions. You can check us out on Instagram and YouTube. If you like what we have to say, please feel free to leave a review, and hopefully it's a 5-star review. Now, you may like us. You may think we're music snobs, and we are, and that's okay. However, if you could escape with us just for a little bit, then we have done our job. Mark, how are you, my man?
Doing good, Frankie. Just enjoying the quarantine snacks like everybody else and trying not to get too fat.
There you go. And just so everyone knows, our good friend Mark here did have a birthday recently, so of course I wish him a very, very happy and healthy birthday from my heart to his. And yeah, man, you made it another year, pal.
I'm just going to delete this note about how angry I am for you not wishing me a happy birthday. There we go. Okay, we can move on. I'm good.
Well, speaking of making it, we've made it to 20, and that's right, man. This is our 20th episode, Mark. Your thoughts on the musical goodness and maybe not musical goodness that we've covered since starting. I don't know. To me, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude, we've listened to some really great records from Afghan Wigs' Black Love, Leatherface's Mush.
Yeah.
I loved Dion's lost album, excuse me. I suppose it was kind of his last if you look at it a certain way.
True.
You know, and then we had a ton of fun listening back to like Green Day and The Offspring duke it out like it was 94. You know, that was so awesome. Plus we got to talk shit about David Lee Roth and suggest quite convincingly, if you ask me, that Sammy was a better front man for Van Halen.
Absolutely.
So you know, plus the old Let It Be versus Let It Bleed. You know, we've had some fun. There have been some albums where we didn't love them. We've had some listeners request some things that were interesting. But, you know, overall, I'm enjoying this. And I think after our next episode, when this podcast can drink, that's how that works, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we'll continue to have some fun and go forward. What do you think?
Yeah, it's been a blast covering these things with you, especially because of the length of time we've known each other for then those kind of in-between years where we've kind of skewed off and started listening to different things and kind of looped back around to the center, which is where we are. I mean, there's just this constantly where I'm always thinking, okay, well, what will Mark think about this, which is always a cool thing because I love hearing your opinion on it. And then those other dedicated episodes, like you said, the Green Day versus Offspring, I thought both those were really fun to put together. The last one we did, the Rancid episode, was really, really cool. Let It Be versus Let It Bleed. You know, I try to be a little bit more tactful and strategic with what I suggest to you. Of course, the standard is Cloud Nothings, which is the bottom of the barrel, which again I haven't listened to.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
I know, but you know I am. but then also too, like the Lord Huron album, which may not have been your style, but you appreciated it, and that's kind of,
you know, that record sounded really cool, and I can
right.
appreciate that.
Right, exactly, and you know, kind of, it's good for me then too to get out of my comfort zone as well, because things like Leatherface, which I may have listened to or may have been dedicated to listening to maybe years ago, and I kind of lost some track of some things and kind of circled back to something like that, and I really love that record. So. Yeah, I mean, just a lot of cool things. Civilian was another one where, you know, a lot of really cool songs. St. Paul, which again is not my style, but hey, you know what, I at least appreciate it enough to give it a listen. So it's been really, really cool. And one thing that we've done in past episodes, Mark, which we haven't done in a while, is talk about some of the things happening out there in the rock news world. So you kind of, yeah, what do you think about covering some of those things real quick?
I didn't know the rock news world was still going in the quarantine, but I guess how could you stop it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, not a lot happening because bands aren't touring right now, but there's some interesting things to note. So what do you say we cover some of these things and make fun of them a little bit here?
I'm gonna put on my bib so that we can dig in. Let's do it.
Well, the first one is your guy, Mr. Bon Jovi, has an album coming out, and it's called Bon Jovi: 2020. And I know you're excited about it, but you may be sad about this now, is that his stadium tours delayed due to the COVID-19. So, Mark, another stock and generic album from Mr. Bon Jovi on the horizon. What can we expect here? What are your thoughts? I know you're anxious.
We can hear, songs from New Jersey's best songwriter that nobody has ever heard of. And by that, I mean whoever's writing Bon Jovi's songs. No, I'm just kidding. He's not getting songs from that guy. He's getting songs from somebody else. We're going to get another super generic, super lame album. Frank was cool enough to pull up some of the names of these songs.
I am. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Give them to me.
All right. We got Beautiful Drug.
Oh, shut up.
Unbroken.
Wait, Beautiful Drug, wasn't that like a Nine Inch Nails song?
I did The Perfect Drug, right?
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, go on.
Unbroken, of course, which has been done 1,000 times.
Yeah, I hope that's a Celine Dion cover. Like, I want that to be a straight cover.
That may be actually more interesting, right?
Wait, like, give him something to do, right? That's not just fart rock. I know that this whole album's going to be fart rock, but
Limitless, that's another one.
Oh God, get out of here! Yeah,
my favorite thus far, Love Can, and love is spelled L-U-V.
Sure. Love can what? Love can. Love can spell.
Yeah, love. Yeah, exactly. What about Brothers in Arms?
Ooh, okay. So I mean, this is just the most generic crap I've ever heard. I really hope that song is like inspired by and dedicated to the cast of Brothers in Arms, the HBO World War II show. because why not? Because Bon Jovi, it's 2020. You don't need the money. You don't your fan. Just stop it. Like, honestly, this is what I say to bands all the time that have been around this long and just continue to put out these generic pieces of shit. Right, Frank?
Yep. Print
some more T-shirts.
Yeah.
Just print some more T-shirts. What are you wasting time and space on? Not, I don't know if you see these. They got to be putting these out on vinyl, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Just stop it. Or would be interesting. Honestly, I hate him. He's a schmuck, but it'd be funny if he did a cover album.
Thank you.
Let's do even if I don't want to say do a Sinatra and do a standards album. That would be atrocious.
Yeah, very pretentious.
But do something out of your wheelhouse. Do all 80s pop.
Yeah.
No hair metal. Just all I want fucking Cyndi Lauper. What was the song she did for Goonies?
It's good enough for me. It's good enough for you. With that song.
Do that. Do do some Oingo Boingo.
Yeah.
Do some who's the guy who got caught in the bathroom jerking dudes off? Limp Bizkit did one of his songs. Michael
George Michael.
George Michael.
Wham.
Do some
Wham.
Yeah, Wham. Do some Wham. That would be entertaining. Just do some straight 80s pop or hear me out.
I'm
You're gonna hate listening to it, but it would be interesting. Get some more 80s singers, right? Dudes that were the shit when he was the shit. 4 of them. And then do a 90s boy band cover band.
Oh my God.
Nothing but NSYNC and 98 Degrees and Backstreet Boys, some Boys to Men. That would be funny as fuck. And people would be like, oh fuck, I gotta fucking buy this. Can't not buy this. Right? God, Bon Jovi with his 2020 fucking. Is there a song about hindsight in there? The rest of this track listing? Get the fuck out of here with this goddamn.
I mean, it gets pretty bad. The rest of the track listing is Story of Love, Lower the Flag, Let It Rain, Shine, Blood in the Water. I mean, it's as stock can be. It's as stock as the last album. He's just putting out stuff to putting out stuff. And I think he thinks he's such just an amazing talent that he just needs to get these out constantly. And the thing is, we don't need them. We don't need this.
No.
This
is Richie Sambora? What's that guy's name?
Sambora?
Right, Sambora.
I don't think he's an official member anymore, but
he's not. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
and I had Frank's my official fact checker. They recorded this fucking thing last year.
They did.
So that no songs about coronavirus, no songs about quarantine.
Nope.
No songs about SNL at home. What is this 2020?
Yep.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Fuck
And
outta
you know
here.
what? Now thinking about it, I would take any one of those ideas you said. I would even take him doing barbershop quartet music. Really, like just something different, man.
Yeah.
Oh well, we'll probably end up touching base on that at some point, and I say that with some disdain in my voice, but I'm sure we'll get to that album, Mark. Don't worry.
Thanks, buddy.
I know. Let's turn the page here. So we get Pink Floyd. They can't agree on a reissue for their album Animals. So Roger Waters has revealed a failed attempt at civility with his former Pink Floyd bandmates. He discussed the attempted peace meeting during conversations with Rolling Stone magazine. He wanted to sort out a plan, Waters explained, adding that both David Gilmour and Nick Mason were in the room for this conversation, but the plan did not bear fruit. What's pretty funny about this is when they were asking about any sort of reunion, he said Roger Waters said it would be awful. He goes, if you're a fan of those days of Pink Floyd, well, then you have a different point of view. I had to live through it. That was my life. And I know that in the wake of it, I've been cast as something of a villain by whoever, whatever. So be it. I can live with it, but I would trade my liberty. Would I trade my liberty, excuse me, for those chains? Question marks. No way. So, Mark, Pink Floyd, I guess they can't agree on anything, huh?
Yeah, I didn't know this was news. No, I mean, look, get back to me when it's Dark Side of the Moon.
There you go.
The Wall. I mean, like, Pink Floyd fans, don't you have enough stuff? I mean, I guess it's better than them putting together a new album.
And calling it 2020, right?
Just make some new T-shirts, split the proceeds 3 ways, and just move on, because who could care?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm sure that's Ego City right there with all those guys. Roger Waters, he says he has been painted as a villain. I mean, I don't see him being anything other than the villain. I mean, this is coming from someone who prefers David Gilmour anyway. But like Mark said, you guys got a lot of stuff, man. And I mean, do we really need an Animals reissue?
Yeah, I mean, and they have been working on it for like 2 fucking years or something at this point, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, just fucking release the thing in stereo or mono or whatever the fuck you're doing. Make it an 8-disc, whatever the fuck.
Thank you.
Like, just move the fuck on. Like, what do you guys like? Oh, I couldn't possibly want to make more money. Who cares?
I know.
I agree. Don't go on tour. It's fine.
We'll get over it.
Yeah. Live stream some of your old concerts that were well recorded. I don't know what to tell you. Like, who cares?
Well, what about this? Roger Waters is 76, right? Which I didn't even know he was.
Oh my God.
He was that into his 70s.
Just die already.
74. How about just get over these things, man? Just get over these things. You guys are so in the twilight right now. Find a way to get along. Big deal. If you can't release a reissue of an album that has probably seen 10,000 different versions, so be it. But like you said, how is that news? And
like, you're 74 and 76?
Yeah. What anger.
I mean, what are you guys doing? Like, who cares?
What anger to be harvesting.
Who gives a fuck? Like, what are you guys doing wasting your time talking about a band you all hated being in that made you millions of dollars? Just, honestly, that's so ridiculous. Just like, I agree with Frank. Look, you're in the twilight of your lives. Go get all those really cool prescription drugs. Get all the weird shit that people accuse you of. Go have a great time. Yep. Like, what do you, like, come on. It's 2020. Everybody's fucking dying of coronavirus. Just fucking hang out at home. Have a good time.
Absolutely. I'm sure you got kids, you got grandkids. Enjoy them. Be thankful you've done what you've done for your career. Lord knows people like me and Mark would love to have done that. And
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And like, look, let the reissue go out. Donate the money to anything.
Thank you.
Give the money away. It's not like you need it.
Right.
Give it to first responders. Give it to restaurant cooks. Give it to, I don't care who you give it to. Like, just shut up. You don't need the money.
Yep.
It's, like, there's like 8 people who actually want this thing. Like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stop being pretentious. Get over it. Get over it. I know. Well, speaking of money, talk about people spending money too. Bob Dylan's original handwritten lyrics for "The Times They Are A Changing" were placed on memorabilia auction. geez, with a starting price of $2.2 million, and his words for Subterranean Homesick Blues was also offered at $1.2 million, while Lay Lady Lay opened $650,000. Auctioneers Moments and Times provided pictures of them with authenticity. My point in bringing this up is, I mean, listen, I love Dylan, but who on earth is spending this money, Mark?
Yeah, I agree with you. My other thing is that, like, knowing the way he speaks, do you think his handwriting's clear enough that you could actually read these things?
It's probably so sloppy, man.
I mean, I guess to a Dylan fan, right? Like, you're of the two of us, you're the Dylan fan / fanatic, right? You're the one who's really into Dylan.
Yes.
I could understand, like, it would be cool to have the original handwritten lyrics to the times they are a-changing, but, like, what are you going to do with that?
Right. At $2.2 million, by the way, what are you going to do with that?
Right. Like, you're just going to frame it and put it on your wall, and then your kid's going to sell it for drug money when you die. Like, who's, like...
Or bump into the wall, the frame falls, everything gets ruined, something get, like...
Right, you live in California and your house burns down in a fire and your $2 million, page cut out of a Dylan journal goes up in flames and it means nothing. Like,
yeah.
I feel like this, and I don't want to downplay the importance of Dylan. I think he's an American icon. His work, and particularly the times where it's changing, are an important moment in American music culture, American rock and roll, American folk music. I feel like there's probably a museum that could use these. And if you guys want to say we value them at $2 million, but it's in a museum, fine. I don't know. I mean,
you know what the thing is, Dylan guaranteed does not care about this, and I can tell you because one time there was there was a YouTube video of the guy I've mentioned several times, which I would like for you to eventually listen to, Jason Isbell, and they're at the Newport Folk Festival, and they bring out to him Dylan's Fender Stratocaster from when he went electric, and said this is the actual Stratocaster. What happened is after the show, Dylan left it on the plane. And the pilot had it for all these years, and they tried to contact him to be like, here's your Stratocaster from this legendary event where you went electric, and he wasn't even responsive. So I don't even think this matters to Dylan, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is, like, what does he need money for that he's selling these things that he would put them up for auction, unless it's a charity situation? I don't know.
Well, maybe, but was he putting it up too? See, that's where the article I read wasn't specific. Could have been someone else, putting it.
I mean, maybe somebody already bought these, and but again, like, definitely a cool piece of memorabilia.
It is.
I don't know. I mean, is it worth $2 million? I
don't know. Money's hard enough to make as it is, man. I mean, there's no way anybody could justify that,
There's a couple assholes who probably disagree with you, man.
I know. Well, let's get them on the show. Let's get them on the show then.
Hey, listen, if you have spent if you've spent over $1 million for any merchandise from a band, come on the show. But I want it to be like, yeah. I bought, like, a Kiss coffin. I bought Paul Stanley's amp, and Ace Frehley wiped his butt with a napkin and gave it to me, and all of that I spent $1 million. If you've got $1 million to spend on merchandise, give us a call.
Yeah,
you know how to find us. We would love to talk to you. We've got some great investments for you.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm absolutely intrigued. So
yeah, but mostly we want your money because you're an idiot.
Now next.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of idiots.
Speaking of idiots, we have the Black Crowes, and they do not want to record a new album yet. First of all, they were still making records. So the Black Crowes are taking their recent reunion one small step at a time, weary of reigniting old arguments. Oh my God. They, Chris and Rich Robinson, decided against bringing in fellow ex-bandmates for a previously announced tour they're not willing to discuss a new album. First of all, I hate the Black Crowes, Mark.
Yeah, the only hit's a cover, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Hard to handle. I never got their appeal.
I mean, I can dig that song.
Right, but like them as like a brand or anything like that. I mean, it's just boring hippie music to me, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you nailed it for me. I know people dig it. I know it's kind of jam bandy horse crap. You know, what are they planning for this reunion anyways? No one can go anywhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, what are they planning exactly?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I know.
hey, look, good for them. Not to. I mean, other than the singer and apparently his brother, could you name any of the other members of the Black Crowes?
No, and I have a hard time remembering his name because I just think he's so unmemorable as a singer. I mean, and a vocalist. I mean, there's just I don't know. They're just not my style, man. I don't.
You know, before I understood like what how drugs impacted rock and roll, right? Like the fact that like most musicians use something or another, whatever. I remember seeing the Black Crowes on TV and being like, man, that guy should really eat something. Like I was genuinely worried, like that guy needs like a good Italian or Jewish grandma to be like,
yeah, fatten him up a little bit.
Yeah, yo, you got to eat. Yeah, he's so skinny.
Yeah, I know.
I worry, and all that jamming, you know. You're going to burn a lot of calories. You need to eat something, bud.
Too much jamming and not enough banding, huh?
Yeah, too much jamming and not enough
writing good songs.
Yeah. I was gonna. What's the other thing? It's like jam, jelly, marmalade. Not enough marmalade.
Marmalade. Yeah. Well, don't forget there's planar Olfert. Remember that? Do you remember the commercial for that?
Not at all.
Oh man! All right, well, YouTube it. It's pretty funny. It's really snooty, but it's pretty funny.
Hey, speaking of funny,
yeah.
What's this next thing you got for me?
This is the funniest piece of news of them all, I think. So, this is a friendly jam session between Eddie Van Halen and Limp Bizkit reportedly wound up with the guitar icon pulling a gun on Fred Durst's head around 2001. So there's a new photo book. It's called Eruption in the Canon, 212 Days and Nights with the Genius of Eddie Van Halen. So,
oh boy, they're just so generous to fucking Eddie Van Halen right now.
I know, right?
So I want to stop you. I saw this on the internet.
You did? Okay.
And I went, that's just clickbait. I believe it. I don't need to know the rest of the story. The fact that you went ahead and read the story is awesome. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So the incident took place with Durst. Allegedly took. This is when their guitarist Wes Borland had quit the band and they were taking auditions to find a replacement. So
how do you replace a guy like Wes Borland?
How do you, right?
I mean, Eddie Van Halen seems like the logical next step.
They were introduced at a party where record label executives suggested they would work together. So they said that would be hilarious. And Eddie Van Halen said, or someone said, oh, okay, that would be great. The greatest guitar player plays with the worst band ever, which Limp Bizkit's pretty close to worst band ever status. But Van Halen said, well, let's jam. So the session went ahead in Beverly Hills, but Van Halen, who was not a fan of weed, I guess, left abruptly after people began smoking it. They left guitars, amps, and other equipment behind.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I get.
He said it was like being a scholar amongst kindergartners.
What? Jesus Christ, the ego on this psychopath. But why do you leave your stuff behind?
Why do you leave your stuff behind? That's the question I think we should ask.
If you're Eddie, I mean, I guess you're Eddie Van Halen, but at the same time, you're Eddie fucking. It's not like he unloaded it from his car.
How about don't call the. It's about calling the kettle black too. He's had his issues, has he not?
but and the other thing is can we talk about how lame this party is? I know people are going to be like, dude, what are you talking about? 2000? What was this? 2001?
2001.
Limp Bizkit is one of the hottest acts in the world. Fucking, I'm sorry, universe. And Eddie Van Halen are at the same party. How fucking lame was this party?
I know.
Oh my God, what a dumpster fire.
Was Korn also there?
Oh my God, Jonathan Davis is just in the back. Right? And Eddie's like, well, I'm not fucking talking to him. It smells like a marijuana cigarette.
What's funny is the next day, Van Halen contacted Durst to recover his gear, and the guitarist was still upset about the experience. And after not hearing back from Durst for 24 hours, he decided to take matters into his own hands. So he once bought an assault vehicle from a military auction, and it had a shine gun mount on the back. and it is not legal, obviously. And he drove that assault vehicle into Beverly Hills and parked it, left it running in the front yard, the house that Limp Bizkit was rehearsing in. And he got out wearing you can't make this stuff up. He got out wearing no shirt, his hair, and a samurai bun on the top of his head.
He likes doing that.
His jeans held up with a strand of rope and combat boots held together by duct tape and a gun in his hand.
What?
Yeah.
What, like, 2001, what happened to Van Halen that he's like, I don't even have a shirt for this situation? Are you kidding me? Like, and a belt? Buy a fucking belt. Like, what the fuck?
What about the combat boots? I mean, that's freaking...
And the audacity to be like, I showed up like this, but you guys smoke weed.
It's so ridiculous.
So ridiculous.
Oh, and then he said, this is Van Halen explaining it to the guy who wrote the book. He said, that asshole answered the door, meaning Durst, and he put his gun to that stupid red hat of his. And I said, where's my shit? The guy then turned to one of his employees and starts yelling at him to grab his shit. And Eddie Van Halen stood at the front yard of the residential home in Beverly Hills in broad daylight too, nonetheless, smoking a cigarette while holding a gun to Fred Durst as he went back and forth from the house to the assault vehicle, lugging his amps and guitars. So, hey, man, moral of the story, don't mess with Van Halen's gear.
What? Hold on a minute. Listen, if you're one of those assholes who smokes cigarettes and thinks marijuana is bad, shut the fuck up. Go jump off a bridge. Nobody likes you.
Well, didn't he have a cancer scare? I mean, hello.
I mean, but still, like, yeah. I mean, the whole thing is just absurd. Like,
did he have like war paint on? I wonder.
God, I hope so. But like, I can see the samurai thing. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like,
I know.
Dude, Eddie Van Halen, like, just get back to making fucking music for pornos. Nobody's interested.
Is this real? I wonder if I got duped on this article now.
I don't know. Like, it just seemed like clickbait. I believe it. I believe all of it.
That stupid red hat of his.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's some funny rock news, isn't that, Mark?
Mm-hmm.
I know.
I mean, just wacky.
Wacky tobacco, right?
Wacky. So what if we put Eddie Van Halen?
Yeah, go ahead.
In a band with Bon Jovi.
Oh, Roger Waters could be the bass player, right?
Roger Waters on bass. We'll put Tommy Lee on drums.
Oh my god!
Because we got to get that drum set upside down for the solo here. And we do all Sublime covers.
Wow.
Yeah.
But see now, based on what you said earlier, with Bon Jovi doing something different for those albums, I would be more intrigued to at least listen to that than another Bon Jovi record.
Right. and that's going to be bad.
And I know it's going to be bad. It's like the Danzig Elvis covers, right? It's like you kind of have to listen even though you don't want to, but I know you did because you told me you did. I
listened to a couple of those songs and it was bad. There's apparently another Danzig cover album that I need to go look at that I've heard is terrible too. Like, I wonder if it's just that thing that like the Misfits Project 1950s where it's Jerry Only singing.
Yeah, it is Jerry Only singing.
Where that record's so good that like he feels compelled to try to do better.
Maybe.
Like, oh, fuck Jerry Only. I'm fucking Danzig. I'm 4 foot tall. I can make a better record than that asshole. and he's just pumping out like this Elvis crap. Like, oh, so bad.
So bad. All right, my man. Should we get to the album review for the week here?
Yeah, we should.
All right, let's do it. So here's my little intro on it. So we're talking about Cheap Tricks in Color. It's their second studio release. So just some background here. And this is a band, to me, who I think at least, and we're going to get Mark's opinion on this soon, I feel they're a little on the underrated side. They were formed in 1973 in Rockford, Illinois. In 1967, Rick Nielsen, the guitarist, formed Fuse with the bass player Tom Peterson. Now, just let me put this out there. Tom Peterson plays a 12-string bass. Just think about that for a second. A 12-string bass.
That's like 3 bass guitars in one.
It's insane. 12-string bass. So you got Bun E. Carlos joining on drums, and the band moved to Philadelphia in 71. They began calling themselves Sick Man of Europe. And in 72, 73, after a European tour, they returned to Rockford and adopted the name Cheap Trick on August 25th of 1973. Now, the original singer was a gentleman by the name of Randy Hogan. He was the original singer, and he left the band shortly after its formation and was replaced by Robin Zander. The name was inspired by the band's attendance at a Slade concerts, where Peterson commented that the band used every cheap trick in the book as part of their act. So they released their first album in early 77. It was a self-titled album, and by late 77, we get this album here in color. So, Mark, before we get into the album, just and of course, track-by-track analysis, as we always do here. When was the first time you caught wind, would you say, of Cheap Trick?
Definitely for me, and I was really surprised getting into this because this was not what I was expecting. I knew Cheap Trick from classic rock radio and the I Want You to Want Me live at Budokan.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me because the only thing I really knew about Cheap Trick is that much like Peter Frampton, he couldn't sell a record they couldn't sell records to save their lives.
Yeah, it's true.
Except for the live albums, which is much like Kiss also. So it's one of those interesting things, these bands from the 70s that have albums and albums and albums, but the only way people listen to them are the live recordings. So really that's all I knew was the I Want You to Want Me live from Budokan that you hear on classic rock radio.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring up those other bands too who got popular from the live album. And just a real quick side question, what do you think it is about the live album that then makes the band be popular, amongst all the other stuff that they did up until then?
Well, obviously I have a preference for, I'm going to say, straightforward rock and roll, but for, kind of no frills. Well, yeah, I guess that doesn't really count with Frampton. But just rock and roll, things that you have to be able to do with a group of people live, no mixing, no, all this backing. Now, obviously now, we can have all kinds of stuff when you're performing live to the point where most live performances aren't live anymore.
Yeah.
But I feel like in this particular era, you had to rock, you had to keep the crowd going, you had to bring this presentation, you had to keep them entertained for the hour and a half that you were going to perform, and the energy change certainly, and we'll get into it when we get to track 4, I Want You to Want Me. The live version, far more energetic, far more rockin'.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, I think, to answer your question, I think that's a big piece of why those albums were bigger and the records per se weren't, or the studio albums weren't, is that live performance carried that energy that sometimes in the studio, bands can muddle and can lose by spending too much time in the studio, or just maybe it doesn't come across the same way it does on stage.
Yeah.
People, it's interesting if you see me and Frank talking about music in front of each other, our hands are up in the air and we're, arguing and yelling at each other and having a really good time with it.
Totally animated, yeah.
But when you see us at home, my hands are folded really nicely. I'm just kind of looking at my computer screen, and I'm just talking about it. But, if we were in front of each other, now that I say that, I am using my hands. I think that translates with rock and roll too. That intimate performance versus, being exposed to people and knowing that you have to keep their energy and keep them going. That's, to me, when you see performers either that keep their back to the audience because they're nervous or afraid, those performances never come across the way those, albums like Live at Budokan do, where they're, you just hear the band roaring, you hear the crowd roaring, and that energy really crosses over and it makes it exciting to listen to. You're listening to it and you hear the crowd and you feel like you're part of it.
Yeah. I think that's a really good explanation of that for sure. And obviously I Want You Want Me. It's such a staple track in their collection. I would say for me, the first time I probably caught wind of them was when they did the Don't Be Cruel Elvis cover in '88. And of course, that song, the power ballad, I guess, The Flame, which was all around MTV in '88. But this second album, In Color, is considered, it's a classic staple in the world of power pop and I think rock and roll in general. Now, this is not the overly complicated version of rock. It's simple to me. It's nice, loud, blaring guitars. Has almost some of the early. I'm not saying it's punk by any means, but it has kind of that palm muting sound, and there are some elements of it. And think about what was going on in '77, right? You had uprising, you had leftovers from hippie music, you had of course disco, you had mainstream rock, and radio wouldn't touch punk, so you get new wave, which is all sounds from all over the world. The self-titled album, definitely grittier than In Color. Producer Tom Werman, which, quick joke, I actually had in my notes, I misspelled it. I had him Tom Wiener. Tom Werman, sorry, was trying to hone in on Rick Nielsen's songs and bring out the harmonies. I know I was trying to nudge you earlier, Mark, and of course, before we get, again, into track by track, but you said this album wasn't what you expected. So tell us, what did you think about it?
Yeah, so... I think like most people who perhaps haven't dive headfirst into Cheap Trick Records, you're expecting the live album, right? Yeah. You're expecting this big rockin' thing. It's not that.
Yeah, this album is not that. You're right.
It's not that by a stretch. Although a good portion of this is on live at Budokai. Yeah. So we'll just jump right in with the tracks?
Yeah, start off with Hello There, Ladies and Gentlemen.
Yeah, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is kind of I liked it. I felt, back to the band's name, what it is. I thought it was kind of a cheap trick right off the front. This is very much if this were a concept album, this first track would still work because it's hey, this is a 70s rock album and you're listening to it song, and this is the first track on that 70s rock album. So just the 70s rock and roll geared for an opening track. All right. Am I ready to rock? Well, I believe I am. Would I like to do a number with you? I'd rather roll a number with you, but let's do it. And just like that, it's over. It's quick. It's under 2 minutes, like 1:40, I think.
Yeah, very short.
Which is cool. Like, hey, look, we're setting up this record. Want to get you in, want to pull you in, get you involved. I appreciated the opening of this. Very like rock and rolly. I was really into it. You get track 2. And you got anything to add in for Hello There, Frank?
So yeah, and I really agree with you too. And mm-hmm. It's so interesting you coined that as, hey, listen, if this was a concept album, that would be a great introduction because you're kind of then talking to the listener too, which I didn't even think about it like that. And I think that's great. Listen, nice, short and punchy. Robin's voice shows why he's, I think, underrated at some points in his career because it's really done well here. Of course, on the live version, it's done even at a faster speed and more intensity, and there's points where the voice even gets a little rough. It's no fillers in this song. It's done before you know it. Nice, short and punchy. So it's a good intro. Then we get into Big Eyes. Mark, what'd you think of Big Eyes?
Yeah, so I dig it. Really this kind of really cool, straightforward rock and roll. We're firing on all cylinders. It's got a really nice drive to it, and I like the way that the Big Eyes chorus is kind of haunting.
It's kind of cool, right? Yeah.
And it does have, these parts where the song does like this intentional drag to it, despite the fact that it's still moving forward and still driving. I thought this was a really cool song.
Yeah, I love the guitars on the song. It's more layered than you expected, and I think that layering has to do with Tom's 12-string bass again, because the guy's playing it like a freaking guitar. It's pretty crazy. Robin again delivers a great vocal performance. The classic rock chords and verse. It's not though as predictable as one would think. It's a good stomper, and I definitely like that track as well. Then we get Downed, Mark, on the third track here.
Yeah, Downed. Almost heavy metal with some of the whimsical lyrics. And there was kind of like a borderline Black Sabbath guitar riff in there, which I thought was pretty cool. I did think the chorus with the downed and
Yeah.
I thought that got a little repetitive and generic. Whereas the verses were really kind of cool, and like I said, they're kind of whimsical. I thought it was a really interesting song, really cool, especially for what in my brain I was expecting with "I Want You to Want Me" coming up.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting to see where this was going to go. What did you think of Downed?
So I think at the beginning, to me, I got the most kind of classic rock feel to it. But then, as you said, there's other things going on there too, and the metal thing I didn't even put together. And now hearing it to me, it makes sense. You could hear their affinity, I think, at some point for those later Beatle records, especially in the harmonies. And I think the guitar breakdowns are really good in here. So it's a good track. And again, the live version from Budokan is awesome as well. So I like it. But yeah, you're kind of also looking ahead, because what you're looking ahead at, right, Mark, is the song everyone knows, "I Want You to Want Me."
Right. Which, I mean, hey, look, the one that we know, the live version, right? And I'm sure there are people who know this version and maybe prefer this one. I don't, but it's really interesting. This record's 78, 77?
Yeah.
77. But it's got this this 80s poppiness to it. This song clearly inspired so much in the 80s, but what's cool about it, because it does sound so almost iconically 80s, is that it's a throwback sound with the big piano and the snapping and clapping. It's kind of this 50s rock and roll sound that would become more popular, especially like Billy Joel and some of the stuff in the 80s. So it was really interesting to hear this version. That said, the guitar was used more as like an accent, whereas the piano, the drums, and the bass were really kind of the driver on this one.
Yes.
I really prefer that live, loud, blaring guitar version of this. It's still a cool song. It's an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, I guess this isn't the take. This is the source material. So it was definitely one of those, like, I don't want to say that this was a speed bump. Like, for me, the first 3 songs of this record are the best of it. And I really dig those songs. This was just one of those, like, wait a minute, because we get this kind of turn from this cool heavy rock into this very pop sensibility.
Yeah.
Not that it's a bad thing. Just, again, we're changing gears to me, where I wasn't expecting to be changing gears.
I agree. And again, the song is so ingrained in our head, but the song is so ingrained in our head from, again, that live version, which is faster. It's edgier. You get the crowd. Obviously, live shows are such an important thing for the energy of the song, because the crowd is participating in it. And Nielsen and Peterson did not like how soft this sounded on the album, in particularly. They thought it did not capture the live album as well. However, let's take that away. Still a good song. It's paved the way for a lot of things. It's one of those songs for me that when I hear it on the radio, I'm not necessarily turning it off, because I don't think it's necessarily been as overplayed as some other of the songs out there that you hear. Some bands have covered it that we like Propaganda. Now, whether that was a joke or not, at least impacted them enough to put out a cover of it. Yeah, listen, the live version is better, but I think you nailed it, Mark. I mean, it's still a classic tune,
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is it's interesting to see, when we talk about albums, how this album shifts, and this is definitely one of those first parts of that. We get into next.
Yeah,
You're All Talk, which is a little ZZ Top action for me.
That's what I have on here too. Yeah.
The drums and the guitar get into this really cool kind of shuffle. Lyrically, not a ton going on. There's not a ton going on the record as a whole lyrically.
Right.
Not that any of it's atrocious. There's no nothing bad. There's no no, I shouldn't say bad. There's nothing where you're like, what the fuck is this lyric?
Right.
But this song just made me want to listen to ZZ Top. In fact, when I went back and was doing my last kind of listen and taking notes today, when I was done with the album, I put on Tres Hombres, because I just the whole time I was like, well, now I want to listen to ZZ Top.
Yeah, I got the same feeling that that bluesy double guitar riff is definitely ZZ Top written all over it. I think Robin does another great vocal delivery here. It's repetitive, absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether that's intentional or not, well, I don't know. I think Nielsen lays down a great solo, but yeah, it did give me that feeling like I do want to listen to ZZ Top again. Not a bad song, but yeah, that's funny how we kind of had the same notes on that.
Yeah, well, it definitely had that kind of classic ZZ Top shuffle.
Yeah,
that's what they're known for. And this was 77, so we're already 3 ZZ Top albums in. There's a live album at this point.
Yeah.
It's not unrealistic to suggest that a band like ZZ Top would have an influence on this, especially when you look at the musicianship in Cheap Trick. These guys are great players.
Yeah.
And you could see that they would be influenced by a band like ZZ Top, which is another band of great players.
Oh.
So
just impeccable, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Track 6, we get "Oh Caroline," Mark.
Mm-hmm. I feel like this song in particular was a big influence on the Black Keys.
That's that's a really good. I hear that now.
Yeah, cool bluesy rock number. Which is interesting because you kind of get like this 50s rock thing.
Yeah,
that kind of very like ZZ Top sounding kind of Texas shuffle. And then this one, you kind of get that really kind of rock and blues that really wasn't happening a ton at this time. Right. It's not crazy. It's not over the top. It's just kind of this cool blues track. Again, lyrically, I'm not writing home about any of this.
No,
but
the
performances on this are, all around are really kind of cool. So it was a fun track. Like I said, I really heard a lot of inspiration from things that came after this. I feel like it would be easy to tag them back here and go like, hey, did you guys like that song? And we would get a lot of like, oh yeah, that fucking song's awesome.
Yeah, I definitely feel that this song personifies the word power pop, or at least a brand that Cheap Trick played, and Big Star, which is another band we'll have to get into also because they're kind of intertwined as far as that goes. I would say the harmonies and melodies galore with the slightly fuzzy palm muted guitars kind of give down that kind of Black Keys vibe, and you could hear, I think, the Beatles influence too on the melodies.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Track 7, Clock Strikes 10.
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh man, the generic rock anthem that never was. It's a play on Saturday Night's All Right to Fight, right?
Yeah.
Yes. It just doesn't deliver. The lyrics are cheesy at best.
They are.
This for me is probably the low light. It's this or the next song.
Yeah, I kind of have the same sentiment. I mean, you get that grandfather clock guitar riff in the beginning, and it's kind of like after that, I almost know what's happening. The verses are textbook. It's probably the one I skip over. That's all I gotta say.
I will say that the woes and hoes and that's right in this are pretty on point.
Yes.
The vocal performance and really the band's performance in this. Everything sounds great.
Yeah. Right.
This song just doesn't do a whole lot. That said, Southern Girls, track 8.
Yeah.
We're back to kind of that piano and clapping.
Yeah.
A little bit more on kind of that what we'll see in the 80s kind of pop style.
Yeah.
Again, lyrically, this song just
doesn't do anything.
It needs a new pair of shoes. Baby needs a new pair of shoes. I just couldn't figure out what he was trying to go for with this. If it was some metaphor for something, or if it was really just kind of a cheap play at lyrics. I couldn't really tell. This was a single, though, right?
Yeah, so this was a second single that did not chart. The first single being "I Want You to Want Me." I don't know if it's the fact that they've mentioned, like California right off the bat, but I had some Beach Boys in my head while this song was going on. It's clean. It's a clean tone, but it's another one where I'm I'm not listening to it. I'm not giving it that much attention. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, and like right off the bat, it's the lyrics. Like I've been north, I've been east to California beaches or something to that vein. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking? Like, and who knows? Maybe it's a euphemism for the world's upside down. You know, like I don't know. But that was kind of, there wasn't enough to put together what he was talking about.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, this would definitely, I mean, honestly, at this point, I'm probably checked out of this album
from those
after Oak Caroline. Yeah. Like I'm probably just done with the record. Like if I have this at home, I'm listening to the A side.
Yeah. Up to Oak Caroline.
Yeah.
Well, the next track then, Come On, Come On. What is that? You kind of have the same sentiment there?
Just kind of an obnoxious pop song.
See, now, I wish this song was positioned second, because on the Budokan album, after Hello There, I think it's a nice segue into it. But you think it was just another pop song?
I feel like it was another pop song, but I agree with you, because on the Budokan record, it works, right? Especially if you're talking about staging a record or a performance in a particular manner to work a crowd, to really pull your listener in. It works better in that atmosphere. It definitely shouldn't have been track 9 of 10.
Yeah.
You know, if this were 6, if this is the first song on the B side, if this were track 2, although I like Big Eyes, I think Big Eyes really kind of sounds cool as a second track. It just kind of, I've really been hit twice really hard with Clock Strikes 10 and Southern Girls. And then this comes on and I'm like, I don't want to come on.
Well, you bring up a good point too of what me and you always talk about, and that's track positioning on an album. Yeah. Hence why we have a podcast on albums and why that's important, right?
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. I think this song, I like the song, but I do think it suffers from track positioning on the album. And then of course we get the last track, So Good to See You, Mark.
Yeah, the O's on this song, the O's and woes are great.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's kind of the same predictable, like cheap rhyme scheme, which is kind of just picking up the rest of what the back half of this record kind of did.
Right.
In that it's just kind of this generic rock structure, which is it's just kind of a bummer, because the first half of this record's so fucking good.
Yeah. Yeah, this song, that part where he goes, "So good to see you," obviously, which is the name of the song. At first it lost me, and then I had to listen to all the other parts in the song, because I think there's like 3 or 4 different kind of little things that's going on there, and I'm like, I like those parts better than when they get to the chorus, the "So good to see you." I think there's more Beatle harmonies, of course. I like the palm muted guitars with the textbook rock riff, but I agree with you that the first 6 songs on the album are really where it's at. But that's the last song on the album, actually.
Yeah. Well, and like I think it clocked in just at like 31, 32 minutes.
Yeah, not over long.
I'm kind of into that. Look, short, sweet, pretty easy to listen to. I put this on at the grocery store the other day, just while I was doing shopping by myself, and like, hey, look, it didn't drag. I wasn't like, oh, what am I listening to? It's a fun listen, and kind of a cool album, like particularly the first half of this record. It better than what I was expecting. I kind of knew the Live at Budokan, particularly I Want You to Want Me, the sound.
Yeah.
Right. And I was expecting a toned down version of that, and I got something very different.
Yeah. Something I expected, yeah.
Right. It does feel like, the dichotomy between the first half of the record and the second kind of half of the record, that they couldn't decide on what the album should sound like. You kind of get this very rock, almost heavy metal up front.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then you get these pop songs thrown in, and then you kind of get a little bit of blues rock.
Yeah.
And then you get kind of this slightly more generic sound at the end of the record. According to Rolling Stone, which take them or leave them. This record is ranked 443rd of 500 best albums ever.
I'd say something, right? I mean,
it says something. I don't know that it's that good. But again, I don't know that my top 500 would include Cheap Trick.
Right.
I don't know what criteria they use, so it's kind of hard to say, like, does it belong to be there? I would think, and I don't know, I should have looked, I would think the Live at Budokan would be ahead of this.
I think it is.
I would imagine. Don't get me wrong, the musicianship on this, the recording quality on this is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Lyrically, cheap thrills for the most part.
Yeah.
You're not writing home about the lyrical content, but it's all delivered really well. Guitar playing's the same. Rhythm section was fantastic. It's interesting to me that this was their second album because it comes out only a few months after the first album.
The first album, which did you check out any of those tracks?
I listened to the whole record, and I got to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I like the self-titled album way better.
Yeah.
It's a little bit longer. Some of the songs go on a little different, but it felt like that's what they knew they wanted to do.
Now, what about past In Color? Like, did you get to Heaven Tonight or anything like that?
Yeah, I couldn't figure. It felt like they were trapped in figuring out what they wanted to do.
Right.
That first album sounded like a band, that had been together for 2 years and had been working on this sound.
Yeah.
And had an identity and idea. And then this album comes out really quick, and I feel like, maybe it was a record label thing, and I'm just assuming that, hey, look, we kind of gave you guys a cool record deal. That first album didn't do quite what we expected. I think there was only one single off the album, and if I remember correctly, that didn't chart either.
Right.
So, a little pressure from the record label. Hey, we want a little bit more pop. We want a little bit more, put you in there with a cool producer, really focus. And I will say the quality of the record on the second one sounds way better. Like, it's a really cool sounding record. And the first one, and hey, maybe that's just me. I like a grittier sounding record.
And tracks like He's a Whore from that first record is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, that song's super cool.
Yeah.
What was that other one? TV Brutality.
Yep.
There's some really cool stuff on that record. It's cool.
Gritty. They were gritty.
Yeah. There's a couple of songs that definitely go on longer than they need to, but it's a cool record. Definitely worth, if you're willing to take the time to listen to this, take the time to go back and listen to that. That's only 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's not so bad. It's a little long, but like I said, it's definitely worth it. So yeah, pure speculation as to how this album came out so quickly, and with what came out on it. It just seems it seems like there was a bit of an identity issue there.
Totally.
But again,
the band wasn't, obviously they weren't that in love with the recording. So in '98, actually, the band went into the studio and they re-recorded this entire album with producer Steve Albini, and the result was basically the same songs but done up the way they always wanted them to be performed, which was more of a concert feel. Now, this version was once talked about being released as part of a deluxe reissue along with the original version, but it's still yet to have come out. I would actually be down to hear that, to be honest with you.
I'm completely with you. I would love to hear that, because like I said, it's really interesting that they put out, a band that was only together for 2 years, puts out their first album. A few months later, they're cranking out this next record. This one was particularly big in Japan.
Yeah, there you go.
Thus, why after In Color, or not In Color, what was the third record?
Heaven Tonight.
Heaven Tonight. After that, they're in Japan. The shows. I mean, if you've heard that, like, if you've heard just the opening for "I Want You to Want Me," this song's called "I Want You to Want Me," and the crowd just goes,
oh my god,
crazy,
they go nuts.
That energy, yeah. You record that, like you put that out and see what, and clearly that's what worked. That's what drew people to this band. So it's just really interesting that you get these albums so close togetI
Yeah. It sounds like something's up. I think that's what it is.
But like I said, hey, look, I really dig the first half of this record.
Yeah.
I really think it's so interesting to see these sounds that they did in 77, how the 80s would spend, 1980 through 1989 trying to duplicate them.
Yeah.
And the recording on it, whether the band liked it or not, it sounds gorgeous. Now, maybe I think there's probably I would love to hear what those other takes sound like, because
Me too.
Because this is a pretty interesting record top to bottom. Like I said, lyrically, I don't think anyone's looking to Cheap Trick or a band called Cheap Trick for Bob Dylan-esque lyrics.
It's not what it's about. Yeah.
Right. Nobody's going to Bon Jovi looking to save their life. I don't think anyone's going to Cheap Trick for that. But there's some really fun stuff on here. There's some stuff I could do without. Like I said, if I were to come across this record in a record store and it were priced appropriately, I would listen to the A side and that would be the end of it.
Right.
Because there's some really cool stuff on there. There's some really fun stuff. Yeah, that's how I felt about it, Frank.
Cool. Well, and after, and I'm totally stoked on that too, to be honest with you. And after In Color, we get Heaven Tonight, and of course on there, there's tracks, the hits like Surrender. Then of course the Live at Budokan album comes out, and that's their best-selling album, and that gave them attention for their live performances. And what's funny is earlier this year, 2020, that album was selected by the Library of Congress for preservation in the National Recording Registry for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. So that's kind of crazy. Then after that, we get the album Dream Police. And I mentioned this is because I like those records. I like all the records I mentioned. And sure, as the days progress, they get corny, and a lot of their stuff goes unnoticed. But I think they're one of those bands that slip under the radar. And I'm not sure if people really maybe understand how good they are or can be. They're not glamorous, flashy. In fact, they're probably nerds like us. I mean, Mark, would you kind of almost, you don't have to say the full word, but would you say they might be underrated or under something?
I don't know that I would call them underrated. I think, that one hit wonder moniker that they get, that might be overstated.
Okay. I hear you.
I think there's definitely more with this band than they're given credit for.
Yeah.
If that means they're overrated or not,
I know that's such a gray area.
Yeah, it's one of those things. There were points in this record where all I wanted to do was listen to this record. There were points in this record where all I wanted to do was listen to other bands. So it's one of those kind of wacky things of like, it'd be cool if they opened for somebody I've always wanted to see, Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get good performance. I mean, listen, Robin's vocals are mostly on point. I would love someone to find a bad vocal performance from him and send it my way. I mean, again, their bass player plays a 12-string bass as if it was a guitar. Bun E Carlos as a drummer is very consistent. And of course you have, this unique individual as the guitar player who encompasses, a lot of the personalities. He's a shy dude, but he's got a lot of personality. And, I would like to see them live. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would definitely tag along if they were the headliner.
Yeah,
like I'll tag along to Cheap Trick.
Cool, man. Well,
right? But I mean, I think it's interesting. You look at bands, no crazy drama, right?
Right.
No, they've just been a cool band. Like, that's like the coolest thing in the world, right?
Is like, that? Look, yeah.
You know what? We get to travel all the time. We're best buds.
Yep.
We make music together that we like, presumably.
Normal dudes from Rockford, Illinois, and we've had all these cool experiences together.
Fuck yeah, bro! And they're huge in Japan. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? They're fucking big in Japan, man. You know what? Like, that's what it's about, man. It's like them and Devo. Fucking Japanese people get it. We don't. Like, or we don't get it the way they get it.
They don't get rock. Yeah, we don't get rock and roll the way they get it.
Right, but that's cool. You know what? Like, fuck yeah, bro. Like, go be insanely popular there. That's awesome. Like I get nothing against Cheap Trick. It was one of those ones. I'm happy I can check Cheap Trick off my like. Have you ever actually listened to a Cheap Trick record? And I can be like, yeah, bro. I listened to 3 of them, and they're pretty cool.
Nice.
So.
I'm happy, man. I'm smiling right now.
Aw, thanks, buddy.
Oh, man. So you want to talk about the next episode that we have, Mark?
For sure.
Let's do it. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I got a little record pick for you.
Yes.
So we're gonna do some quote unquote post hardcore. I think this just kind of falls into like modern hardcore.
Okay.
2015's Nonstop Feeling by a band called Turnstile.
Okay.
These guys are young, energetic. You're gonna feel all that in this record. Great album for when you're working out. Throw this on when you go for a run.
Yeah.
I think you're really gonna dig it. Really kind of a progressive group. There's some interesting lyrics, but nothing that's, there's no Dylan on this record. But I think it's cool. I think you'll dig it. I think it'll be one of those ones that you're gonna want to use to hype yourself up, because it just kind of has a great energy to it.
Yeah, I'm amped to hear this record. I've heard of them. It's one of those things where I just haven't had the time to sit through and listen to it. And you want it to be known that I definitely like loud, energetic, and hard, and even heavy music too. The thing is, some people just have to realize, like, when I'm in my space and creating music, since I'm just one person, I create stuff that's not that. So that's why then I listen to majority of the other stuff. But I do dig albums that follow that suit, especially obviously when working out and running. So I'm amped to hear about it, amped to dive into them. And yeah, Mark, I'm pretty excited. Thanks for that recommendation, man.
My pleasure. Yeah, I was going to say this is probably like the newest thing we've done, but we did that new Pearl Jam and new Brian Fallon like days after they came out, so I guess that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
But hey, if say you're listening to this podcast right now and you're like, man, these two jackasses have talked for a while and they're talking about all this stuff I don't care about, but I'm listening. Send us a record you like. We would love to take a look at it and maybe take a listen to it and give you some feedback on what we think about some of your favorite records or the like.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. If you guys have a recommendation, if you're tired of hearing us mostly talk about punk, send us something. Send us something else, because we will listen to the recommendation. We're not going to guarantee we're going to like it, but we will listen. Throw us a like. Listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on Instagram, YouTube. We're all over, right, Mark?
Yeah, we're all over, mostly at home.
Yes.
But as far as the internet goes, everywhere.
Everywhere. Absolutely. And like I said, please be interactive with us. We are nice people. Throw us recommendations. Hey, man, we'll take the time. We'll listen to it. Yeah, that's all I have to say. So, Mark, any last words?
No. Thanks for listening. And in October, when Frank's birthday comes up, I'm going to call him out on it.
There he is. All right, guys. Be well out there. See ya.
Bye-bye.